Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope everybody is having at least a somewhat decent day considering Palantir's price right now. Down about 10% on the trading day and an additional 5%, so about 15% in total with the overnight hours on Robinhood. One of the big things is that Palantir kind of got hit 3 times today. Call it the three-peat, the 1, the 2, and the 3, which is why we're seeing a strong pullback. We have some news that we should talk about, give you guys all the information that you do need to hear. But in a quick summary and kind of what my personal reaction is to this, I'm not incredibly shocked or emotional or, oh my God, how low is it going? Palantir has climbed up at a very high, rapid pace, and we've talked about the risk for downside potential. Has always kind of been lingering around, especially as Palantir has really soared after Q4 earnings. So a pullback right here, back to $100. When in doubt, zoom out. It's kind of one of the big mottos, especially because you're going to see a lot of uncertainty when the market probably opens tomorrow, depending on how the weakness is going to get carried in, or if we'll see a buyback. Now, if you're a new or returning viewer, help me hit that goal of 24,000 subscribers. Let's get into the details of everything that you need to hear. Pop it up on the screen. You got Palantir at 106 right now, down about 15%, like I said. Where it hit at a high before we saw this pullback was at about $120. Now, let's talk about one of the big things that is affecting Palantir in the defense industry across the board. You have Donald Trump here and how he had a big impact on Palantir's stock price plunge. Now, the Washington Post had reported today that the defense secretary ordered the Pentagon officials to cut the U.S. defense budget by 8% annually for the next 5 years. That can be a pretty big cut. Palantir shares actually had plunged from their all-time highs following a report of this administration decision. And what you could see here is that the move could negatively impact military contractors. And this is where Palantir could possibly sneak out of this. And this is because, like Palantir, it derives a decent amount of its revenue, about 40% of its fourth quarter revenue, actually came from U.S. government and recently extended contracts with the U.S. Army. So you see some reaction right here, including some of the other defense stocks like L3 Harris, Booz Allen Hamilton, some of these losing ground on Wednesday. However, what we've seen earlier this month that we talked about is that Palantir could actually be better positioned than some of the other stocks because of their focus on AI. And they're actually working to help cut waste. So they could be actually doing what Elon Musk and what Doge is trying to do, cut waste. They could be a company that can help do that for the defense sector. So that's where Palantir could possibly get out of this. But nonetheless, just in reaction to the news, this is what you're seeing, a big drop right here for Palantir. On top of that, you also have Alex Karp, the CEO, that changes their share sales plan, which basically gives him the ability that we saw in a recent filing to sell a pretty astronomical amount of shares over the next 6 months. And this is where you're bringing more uncertainty. People are going to be a little skeptical here. Talking about that, Palantir, in a regulatory filing, disclosed that Karp's new plan will allow him to sell about 10 million shares of the company stock in the next 6 months. Now, 10 million shares equates to about a valuation headlines are calling $1.2 billion right now, having the ability to sell that if he wants to over the next 6 months. So on top of this, with the budget cuts for the fiscal year and the 8% cuts that they want annually over the next 5 years, these are the big culprits to the drop. In addition, you also have Cramer coming out here saying Palantir will be back. If anybody believes or has tracked reverse Cramer theory, it's basically anything he says, the opposite will occur. So saying that, hey, Palantir is going to be bought back, it's kind of that. That is the final stab in the heart. Like I said, the three-peat coming out there. But nonetheless, like I said, my personal reaction to this is not to get all crazy and, oh my God, what's happening to Palantir. Going into tomorrow's market, could we see a further pullback? Definitely. If we do see a further pullback in price action, Palantir could definitely see some support that's going to be tested here at the 100. Unfortunately, if that support is lost at that $100 zone right here, there's a large gap here that was created after the quarter four earnings explosion, which took Palantir from 82 and popped it over to $100 and beyond, up to $120. So at these record highs where Palantir is sitting right now, like I said, and what we've mentioned is the risk for downside potential is high. Depending what the reaction is, in terms of the broader markets and also the defense stock and what the reaction is going to be for these budget cuts, that's also going to have a big influence there. Unfortunately, that leaves me and the most of Wall Street and basically everybody with a lot of uncertainty. So there's going to be a lot of speculation and a ton of volatility here in the next few days. So please be careful out there with new positions in things like that. Really urge everybody to do their own due diligence. Looking into Palantir, though, for people that have been possibly waiting, how can we look at this in a good way? For people that have been possibly waiting to get in at a cheaper price, if this does come under 100, then hey, there could be a possible opportunity depending on what do you think Palantir's price should be in the long run, in your own opinion. And the fact that Alex Karp, that brings a lot of uncertainty with selling up to about 10 million shares, it's going to bring more shares into the float, or more shares outstanding, and that's where you're going to see uncertainty. We'll see if he has any type of response to this, or if he kind of just brushes it off and lets Palantir keep continuing to grow. What's happening in the market is that S&P 500, it actually closes as another record high, really as these investors are looking past Trump's tariff fears. Now, specifically talking about a record high, the S&P 500 only went up about 0.24% today. NASDAQ was basically consolidated at 0.07%, slightly in the green. Dow Jones basically about the same. We've been hearing this talk about tariffs for a decent amount of time now, and I think we're starting to see Wall Street and basically the market that's becoming more resilient to this word because of the continuous cautions that the Federal Reserve has given regarding interest rates, that, hey, they're in no hurry to cut rates. You got Trump talking about the threat of more tariffs, talking about the reciprocal tariffs that we've been seeing now, that's saying, hey, if you charge the U.S., then we're going to charge you the same tax for bringing in products. So on top of that, a lot of noise is being tied. A lot of geopolitical, a lot of political talk right now is having a big influence on the market. What I do like, though, is that the market is starting to not be so scared of this war tariff, and we're seeing some resiliency there. In terms of how the tariffs are actually going to affect us, I don't think we will completely know in terms of an economical standpoint. Possibly, is that going to be leading us more into these inflationary concerns? That is the biggest concern right now for the market, is will these tariffs cause an increase in prices? And we've even seen Trump that comes out and says in the short term they could, but it's more about the long-term horizon and the long-term goal. So with that decreases, of course, the probability of the Federal Reserve reducing those interest rates, which is not what the market likes. So we could be experiencing possibly a little bit more of a pullback, or a lot of the dips have been bought immediately back. So not turning into a bearish perspective in terms of the economy just yet. What we do see, though, Microsoft, want to bring some good news here into the end of the video, deploys a new state of matter. What? A new state of matter in its first quantum computing chip. They call here Majerna, if I'm saying that right, or Majerna. One chip includes 8 topological quantum bits. Now, Microsoft getting into the quantum computing space. This company, they say here, spent nearly 2 decades of research in the field, but Microsoft claims that building this new quantum chip required an entirely new state of matter. I'm going to have to look more into this, which is referring to as a topological state. Microsoft's quantum computing chip employs 8 topological qubits using, right here, this different semiconductor, aluminum, basically trying to create the right materials using this exotic particle. It's going to get very technical, but nonetheless, what does this mean for the markets? Microsoft is getting into the quantum computing game, and not just in terms of the AI race, we also have the quantum computing race. When are quantum computers going to be coming around? We don't know. We've seen the CEO of NVIDIA give their realistic hypothesis and expectations. But Microsoft entering the game here wants to get a piece of the pie. Great to see competition across the board, especially from the big stocks. A lot going on in the market. What's your opinion of the Palantir? What is your opinion with the cut for the actual Pentagon with the budget cuts? And regarding Microsoft, what's the move there? Peace out. Take care. I'll catch you guys later.